But all this thing I talk about and try to share with you about what part of your nervous system and your mind-body relationship, what doors open when you center. Why do, sometimes hypervigilance or staying very busy or not being reflective is exactly how some people process trauma, because it's in the quieter spaces that more of our life arc is. One of the things that I try to pass on is that if you can anchor the sensations in the present with your body, you're freer to travel back and forward in time better. So feel your feet on the floor, your sitting bones. And that I remember for me, reconciling at 13 when I was injured, I just put away my life as a child and went forward into an adult life with paralysis, right? And over the arc of my yoga practice, I realized that that was a necessary choice then, probably not a great choice going forward. I lost some of my innocence, and I actually believe innocence never leaves you. It's just abandoned by your adult mind. That innocence is a sensation, right? That's a good one. So as you sit here, it's not just like your past has to be heavy or your future uncertain. It means that in this part of your mind-body relationship, there are a whole cacophony of sensations, including innocence. It doesn't help someone that wants to resist the past to tell them how bad they should feel, right? Even though that's probably a start, right? So you're just allowing your whole life. What I know now, I want to go back and travel through time and help the 13-year-old boy forward, because I've learned a lot. So on your exhale, if you're willing today, bring all of your ages, not as an act of will, but as an act of truth. You have memory. You do travel forward and backward in time. And it's just true. So keep letting in more on your exhale. Try to resist having your mind having to reconcile stuff. I'm not going to be able to go back and not have Europeans give blankets with smallpox to Native Americans as a way to take land. I mean, what do I do with that? What do I do with the choices I've made that abandoning parts of myself to survive parts of my life? I don't know. Except I can sit here, soften my jaw on the inside of my mouth. The past doesn't always have to be sad. The future doesn't always have to be uncertain. This is why there's such advice to be in the present. Except you're never in the present, only. What is possible is your mind gets to empty from its judgment. So your life has had textures. Soften your eyes. Around the temples, the inside of the mouth, lips together, teeth slightly apart. It's all here. It was always all here. But if I stay grounded, this doesn't have to be overwhelming. It can just be the truth. It's overwhelming for the mind, maybe. And you get to refine your presence. So obviously there's multiple directions happening here. Pressing down through the feet, through the inner heel, from the inner groin to the inner heel. Lifting up and rising. moving in multiple directions at once. So at first it's on a vertical plane, up and down, but now make sure you're feeling the space between your sitting bones, the space across your heels, the broadening across the collarbones, the lifting of the chest. Simultaneous multiple directions is an integral sensation in your asana practice. Mind's not in charge of everything. Thank God. So as you feel your sitting bones and the fall and the rise and you activate it, feel your skin. Let the air touch your skin. Add the sensitivity that comes from your skin. Stay sturdy, stay structured. Keep some effort. Let go of your day. Close your eyes from top to bottom if you want to. And prepare your mind to move with all of you, all of your times, past and future. Prepare your mind to do yoga. Good, and then release, and then lift your sternum, drop your chin. This is a lock of sorts, right? It increases the sensation of structure. Your spine and rib cage get more alert. You drop your mind and make it subject with humility to the life force in your spine and rib cage. You stay grounded to the floor. You notice the breath through each nostril, into each lung, staying connected to each sitting bone, to each foot. In the emptiness, there is actually fullness. At least the potential for fullness. And it includes your body. Raise your head up with closed eyes. Open your eyes. So I don't know, you probably figured out that I do yoga for existential appreciation, right? And that's how I teach, right? So I want to feel myself on the chair. So I've been kind of letting myself fall into my chair. I want to move around a little bit. I want to make sure that there's a distinction. One of the real wisdoms of asana is it distinguishes between sensations that you usually allow to conflate to one. So I want to be on my wheelchair for class today, not just in it, right? I am separate from my wheels or from the chair, right? So I'm trying to find a place not to be in so much sunlight here, which is not a bad problem to have, actually. All right, so we'll keep moving around a little bit. And you know that I think that the sensation of space is really, really important, right? The lightness that comes from feeling space, right? So I'm going to put myself in traction, and you know, I think the low back really matters if you sit a lot, right? So I'm going to just kind of try to feel that lightness. and move back and forth because I want lightness to combine with rhythm. Right? So I'm getting this idea of distinction, right? One of the things that I find, I'm going to drop my shade just a second here. One of the things, I forget that works in the fall because the sun is lower on the horizon. I have tandem windows too, and it usually doesn't work in the summer. One of the things that like I want to feel and have part of me again as that there's more of me. That space is also part of me, not just my ability to effort. And the combination of rhythm and space is part of why, like, there are different styles of yoga, right? Or flow yoga. So I'm just making sure, and I'm gonna back bend a little bit because it's Monday, for God's sakes, and I'm gonna forward bend. So I'm just kind of, but there's a wisdom. I'm going from side to side. There's a wisdom. B.K. Iyengar in asana, the B.K. Iyengar describes this way. He talks about that if your body, and I've said this line to you before, I just think the depth of it takes a lifetime, right? Is that when your body is one, when it's just kind of like a lump of clay, your mind, in order to act upon the body, has to break into pieces, right? It shatters. That's my word now, not his. So when the body's one, the mind breaks into pieces. When the body's in pieces, the mind can be one or unified. And when that happens, you experience what freedom is, a transcendent sense of freedom. He calls that total freedom, right? But this, I think what happens when you live with a disability or a trauma and a loss, you tend to manage your life without distinguishing parts of your body, right? Because there's kind of an overwhelming aspect to how much you have to manage. And so one of the many things that asana does is helps you start distinguishing different parts of your body. But the goal is not mastery of that part of your body. The goal is the sensation of freedom that comes from distinguishing parts of your body. So as you hit down through your heels and lift your chest, right, you're distinguishing as you combine your sitting bones connected to your heels and lift your chest. You're actually distinguishing different parts of your body, different ways that your body and your nervous system brings awareness to your mind, right? So as I'm sitting up and I'm broadening across my shoulders, again, I'm just adding different distinguishing characteristics within, if my mind isn't receiving, becomes like a lump of clay. And so as I'm feeling more of my body, and my mind is now getting attuned to sensations that are in my body that are coming to my brain that I was not paying attention to, and I breathe, my mind has to stay subservient to the sensations in order for them to have maximal value. So this is why you're going to have Patanjali constantly wanting you to slow down the oscillations of your mind in the Yoga Sutras. Is that he's trying to reveal something. So it's not only just your quiet spaces that hold nourishment and the potential for unity, they also hold your time. This is part of what I try to share with Bessel van der Kolk, is that a body approach is going to be necessary to reclaim the arc of your life, right? To reclaim your time. So I'm leaning forward now, and as I let such a big awareness in, I need to stay grounded, right? So I'm leaning forward onto my table, putting my forearms on the table or on your lap, And I don't have to judge to let all this in. I just have to let it all in. It doesn't have to have particular content. It doesn't have to be associated with particular beliefs. It's just the truth. Truthfulness as a yama is much more than a moral truth. So again, I'm breathing into each lung. I'm feeling each sitting bone. I'm feeling where my heels are. I'm feeling the separation between me and my wheelchair. I'm letting my spine start to rock back and forth with my inhalation and exhalation. With a little bit of movement helps. I'm like, dang, there's a lot here. Regardless of if you can't hold your arms up, regardless if you can't move your legs, there's a lot here, and it's way more than mental. Right, and then this level of connection to what might be here, even though my mind can only feel it through change. Sit still for a second after you've moved a little bit. Be empowered by what's unchanging here. Let it be a comfort to your agitated mind. I think that there are some energies that help, like forgive yourself, love yourself, be compassionate with yourself, actually help you be in the present for your mind. What about towards the future? What helps you with the future? Faith, but in what? Well, maybe faith should be in the fullness. One of the foundational pieces of my faith in living is that when I allow myself to be full and include the emptiness, I end up feeling more compassionate, more connected, less likely for violence, anger. So I'm just going to sit here and acknowledge that for a second. The unchanging connects me. As my inhalation goes in and out, as I keep my body in parts, so my mind can be more free. Good, and then release. And this, it sounds simple in words. My God, it's the hardest thing I've ever tried to do, right? So now we're gonna start like moving around a little bit more. But by softening my eyes, by quieting my mind, I'm trying to bring more with me, right? Into the movements, into the rhythm, by allowing that, my goodness, there's a lot to me, right? And now forward and back, right? There's like, I get to move with all of me, my past and my future, right? Right? And just trying to get my spine to be part of what's recognized by my mind as experience. Right. And then over. So I can't feel my rear end the way most of you can. So for me, it feels like a prison break to let there be space between me and my seat. But now, as you move around a little bit, keep that sense of levitation, even though you're in your seat, right? So you keep that sense. And that space goes down and up. And I'm going to take my legs wide because I want to have this quieter space take up more. Like let my body inhabit, right? I'm putting together like some of the core signposts of how I think about adaptive yoga. And part of it is I want to do yoga in the whole space I'm in, not trying to control the empty space, but like I'm joined with it. So I'm going to roll back and forth here. What's funny about empty space is that your mind can't have it, right? It actually needs to shut up, right? So I'm moving back and forth, but I'm trying to feel a wider base, but letting my spine come through and back and forth through the space I'm in, right? And trying not to deny it, right? And then I'm going to go this way and this way. We know this, so we do this every week, right? Because I'm trying to light the torches of awareness. And by shifting gravity, my brain is feeling and allowing different input to get to my mind. Because my mind is the last to the party of connection. Remember, I think the mind is the bringer of disconnection, right? My spine is the organ of connection. So now as I'm going both ways, instead of just leaning over, I'm engaging my spine to lean over. I'm activating. This is the beginning of standing poses from side to side. Is that with my legs in different positions, my spine activates, right? And my nervous system and my body reach for expression through my limbs. So I'm going back and forth, right? Realizing there's a lot here, right? And now as I've gone side to side, I don't want to lose connection to the middle. So I'm bringing my legs back together. And I'm remembering that there's always the center to everything. So even though you live in the past and the present, there is actually a center, right? That actually allows for the whole arc, right? Awareness of the whole arc. So my through line, right? Remember I taught one or shared one yoga disability and transformation called Finding the Midline, right? So if my spine is on some level the midline of my torso and my yoga practice, right? Could it also be the midline of your life, right? Go out, take my arms out to the side. So I have to strain to hold my arms up, right? And so, but I want to make sure my midline is staying active. And if you can't hold your arms up, you can do it like this, right? It's not about how far your arms are out wide, or if fatigue comes too quickly, right? And then I'm going down, I'm coming over, and I'm revolving, right? And then I'm revolving. And then I'm going to go back to expansion, finding my midline. So finding the subtlety of the midline is actually done better. Let me take your arms down for a second. So finding what I find, because I realize that the level of my yoga practice that I have to receive doesn't get to be particular in the way that, like, if I want to receive where my bicep is, I can flex my bicep. But if I'm looking for the space in the midline, I have to find the structure around the midline, eat sitting bones, and then allow the space in between without it being a direct object for my awareness, right? And so this idea, so finding the midline means going into the uncertainty of the space between my sitting bones. What I love is when a student wants to ask, well, but they want an anatomical description of exactly what they're supposed to feel. I don't know. It's the space between, right? So find the grounding and find the potential that grows off of the grounding, right? So the sitting bones and lifting the chest allows the space between to fill, right? This midline that can be practiced in the body can be the midline of your timeline. So there's going to be a midline. It's not the midpoint of your life in time. It's, you can have midline in your timeline all through the whole arc of your life. Take your legs wide again, right? So I'm trying to feel now on my arms and my legs. So now I've got my knees out from my hips, my arms out, finding the midline. Something has to hit down, something has to hit up, right? And I'm trying to activate from my spine. And as soon as I activate from my spine, my inner edge, my shoulder blades have to activate, right? I hope you can sense that you want to roll your thighs slightly in to help find the midline, because now your legs are wide, right? So the midline isn't in a straight line. Good, and then release. Bring your legs back together. So all this movement of legs together, leg apart, is to keep your mind receiving variation, because your mind will crave variation. Take your arms wide. Find the midline. But now add to it. So one of the things that, release for a second, take your arms down. One of the things that I find, all this can happen like this, it can happen like this. One of the things that I find that helps me sense the midline that I don't get to grab and control is when I allow the space around my body to be part of my body, right? Sounds weird, I know, right? That's why you find me teaching a lot of negative spaces in poses, right? Because I want the mind to receive what it can't control. So this time when you take your arms wide, feeling your sitting bones and allowing the space in between the sitting bones, connecting it to the inner heels so there's space between your inner heels, do that and take your arms wide. Now try to become more aware of the space underneath your arms, and then connect that to the space on each side of your ear to your neck, right? And all this space and awareness of what's around me surprisingly helps me feel the midline. And then take your arms down. And so then what happens for me, and I hope it starts happening for you, is then the different things that need to activate become more clear. Like, so on this next one, as you're feeling the negative space, right? When I started doing that and started to feel the midline and my shoulder blades started to activate, my practice or the way poses unfold made me want to spread the skin on the palms of my hands, right? Made me want to feel expansion, right? So I'm going to do it again. So I'm going to find the midline, the space between, where there cannot be certainty, where you have to allow it. I'm going to take a breath on that space. I'm going to inhale and take my arms wide. Now I'm not just going to hold up my arms and get my mind fixated on the physical strain. I'm going to be in the spaces around my body. As I do, I travel back to the midline. I expand out again. That's what makes me want to open my palms and fingers if you can. But it's coming off of the midline, a midline that I don't get to control. Good, and then release. But I get to include, right? I get to include it. So we're going to do the same thing now So before we do that, my arms have been wide. So I know, I can tell in my own practice, as I'm doing this with you, I actually want to ground my midline. Oh, there's the sun again, right? I'm going to hit back on my fingerbones. I'm going to lock the boundary into place, right? So I can activate the lift in my chest. And I'm going to breathe here a couple times. Then I'm going to come forward and lock it from a different relationship to gravity. Remember, as I distinguish different parts of my body, what it is to be forward on my sitting bones, what it is to be backwards on my back on my sitting bones, my mind has the opportunity to become more free as I differentiate to receive the whole, right? But if I try to differentiate and control all the parts, I'll never get to the whole. It's not going to happen, right? And then I'm going to go back again, right? And I'm coming forward because now I'm moving my spine through the midline of my body. Back. I'm going back and forth using gravity as an aid, right? And if you don't have the balance coming forward, it can happen in little movements. It doesn't have to be big movements. It can be the rocking, right? The slight rocking and rhythm of gravity change. It doesn't have to be big. It just needs to be grounded to whatever extent you can. So I'm just going back and forth here. Now I'm going to take my legs wide again because I'm going to take up more space, right? I'm actually going to push on my knees outwardly. So I want my groin to open up a little bit. So there's a spasm, right? So I'm going to go like this to my legs a little bit, a couple of times. Okay. I want the space. And what am I doing? My groin now is actually getting stretched. And the importance isn't the stretch. It's the sensation of space that opens up in the muscles I cannot feel, right? It's the space in the fiber, because the fiber of your muscle always had a lot of space in it. And remember, space is where more of you is, right? And what's funny is your relationship to space. I'll bring my legs back together again. Your relationship to space is uncertain for your mind. Maybe to hook up different weeks, that's where the peace train is, right? So now I'm going to take my legs wide again. So filling up space with a sensation of grounding is quite a practice. So now there are different ways that I feel your sitting bones hit down, rise up, activate your spine. But now feel your wrists and your elbows and your shoulders, whether you're like this or this, right? Hips, knees, ankles. Find those spaces, and I have to work more for my knees and ankles. And I'm going to let them in. It's going to help if I balance my head over my neck. Now I'm going to breathe. Taking up space is an art. Good. And then take your arms down. Go over to one side. Again, you're differentiating different sensations. Go over to the other side. Right? Now I'm going to go over to this side and take up space. However you do it. Right? Go over to this side and take up space. Right? And now remember, and then come back to center. Because Angar is trying to pass on the idea that the more you can distinguish different parts of your body, the more freedom and more whole and unified your mind's going to be. So I'm going to lean this way. I'm going to extend my spine. I'm going to take up space. But one of the things I catch myself doing, am I doing the pose with as much of my back body as I am my front? Make sure they're balanced. Back body and front body. Right? And then come back. Again, all I'm doing is getting my mind to allow in more of the truth. I had the back body part of my poses the entire time. That never changed. It's whether I received it to my mind, right? So now I'm just like making sure the front and back of me, right? As I move my arms a lot, am I keeping my feet? As soon as I reach for my feet, my spine activates. Front and back body, my brain has to soften, right? Because my mind's going to get drawn to the front of my body. Good. And then go the other way. There are all these mind habits. Good. And then release. So bring your legs back together. So I don't know if any of you have ever surfed, right? I never have. But I've hung out with some surfers and really asked them a lot of questions about why they like surfing so much. And one of the ways I would describe what I've heard is that there is a smooth, you're on the front side of something that's smooth and incredibly powerful when you're riding a wave, right? Like you don't have to, you're trying to stay balanced, but you're not in charge of the wave, but you can feel it moving you forward. What if prana's like a wave, right? And you got to figure out how to surf it. You're not just trying to paddle in it. And some of us that live with disabilities are actually trying to swim the crawl right through the wave in the opposite direction, right? And that is not the way to maximize your life force, right? So in these movements, I'm going to sit up straight and tall. And I think a lot of the joy, and I imagine this might be what it's like to ride a motorcycle. I'm not sure. Again, I've never ridden a motorcycle either. Got injured before I was on a motorcycle, right? Is that you're riding forward and feeling the space come at you, but you're being propelled forward, right? By something that's bigger than you. So I'm sitting up straight and tall, but I like the idea of a wave because it seems quieter than a motorcycle, right? Deeper, like I'm part of something gigantic, not just burning fossil fuel, right? So I'm sitting there and I'm lifting my chest and I'm sitting in my seat. And even though I'm still and unchanging, I want there to be forward, not just physically forward. But as I do that, I think what might be great about surfing is that you're aware of what's underneath. You're aware of what's behind you, right? You're being propelled forward, past, forward, feel, even when you're still, breathe. Where's the midline? All right. And then forward again. Now I start, if you watch surfers, some of them like, I think it's called, they walk forward, it's called hanging 5, hanging 10, I'm not even sure, right? They walk forward on their board. And then they walk backward on their board, right? Come forward on your board. Well, something's got to hold tight, right? Or else you're going to fall forward. So you got to figure out how you're going to be forward in relationship to the happening of the wave, right? Then you're going to go back and go, wait, I want to go back to the back of it. And I guess as you get really good at surfing, you start being able to walk backward and forward on your board while you're riding the wave, right? Shit, kind of like my asanas feeling like waves, like surfing, right? Because I don't want to have all the effort. I don't want to be in charge of all the effort. And so I'm taking a couple of breaths again with my spine alert, letting the wave propel me forward, even though I'm not moving forward. Now I want to make sure I feel what's behind me, soften the jaw, the inside of my mouth. And then within the wave, you get to make cuts and turns. So that's more like short board surfing, right? So now we're going to do that with standing poses. So take your legs, got the front. I'm going over, right? I'm opening up. I'm saying, hey, look at me. As I wave to whoever I'm waving to at the shore. Look at me, I'm doing something on the front side of the wave, right? Having a little bit of a party on the front side of the wave, right? The thing about surfing is that most of the time is spent paddling and laying flat on the board, right? Waiting for the waves. Good. And then back to center. Forward. Back. Remember, I'm trying to bring what's behind me with me by allowing it coming forward with my chest lifted to honor the board as I come forward, right? I love waking up my spine, actually. I like these now feel different to me than when I started the class. So I'm doing a little bit of indulging right now because it feels so dang good to my body right now. And then I'm going to come into center and let there be a bubbling up, a grounding down, an inhalation, an exhalation. One of the big breakthroughs for me was when, as I sit here and after movement, I'm settling down. When I had my yoga teacher, Joe, say to me, she said, can you hear the silent Om? So even where it seems empty, there's an Om, whatever that sound would calibrate if it were sound. Can't reach for that sound. You have to be balanced to hear it. So as I'm trying to integrate the silent Om into the sensation of my particular body, knowing that I'm riding a wave, the wave is actually temporary. And the wave's got a front and a back side. My life has what's before and what's going to be after. Now, with all of this, I'm going to go through some movements again. Forward. Back. Make these really sensual. Forward. Back. over, open, center, over, open. Do your very best yoga now. Over, open. Your very best is not because you're trying harder. It's because you're receiving, right? Now I'm going to take my legs wide. I'm going to expand, right? And I'm going to do the same thing. Over, open. Just because my voice is nice doesn't mean your muscles aren't firing, right? Over, open. Now on this next time, I want you to feel the whole room, right? Over, open, find your midline, feel the front and back of your body. Take a breath, let go of a breath. All of it. Over, open, front body, back body, each side of the head, the whole room, through my skin. And inhale a breath. Let go of a breath. Back to center. Legs together. Bring it to the midline. Position yourself equally. Ground your femur bones. Bring the expanse of the room down through back to the earth, through Tadasana. One time forward, lift your chest. Fall backwards, rise to the sun on the back bend, right? Open it up. Come back to the midline. Pause. Allow, start softening your organs of perception to find the ground, to receive support, to allow the sky. Your past is here. Your future is here. And you're the midline. All this, your past and your future, needs to come into Shavasana. It's not just the present. You don't get to think your past or imagine your future in Shavasana. Practice symmetry, the structure, and then prepare for Shavasana. Figure out how you're going to be held up by your chair. So all the softening of the organs of perception are to let in the expanse. In the expanse is your whole life arc. Let it be held up. Let your chair hold you up. Close your eyes from top to bottom. Soften your jaw on the inside of your mouth and the skin on your face. Use your skin. Let the world touch you. Let the world hold you up. Downshift towards your body. Feel its hum. Let the world, the chair, hold you up. Feel your breath. Don't change it. Think your body. Think your bones. Start to bring yourself back. Slightly deeper inhalation. Slightly longer exhalation. When you're ready, open your eyes. If it's too bright, close them again. Bring yourself back even more gently. So one of the things that is paradoxical about the past is that you shouldn't deny it, but you can't fix it. But the transforming it is part of acknowledging it is part of it transforming. Just like I can go back and help the 13-year-old boy. Right? And help all of me come forward. Can't believe we're arguing about the past. All right, everybody. Bring your hands together. Namaste. Spirit in me, Baza, spirit in you.